I'm Amy.
I'm Wendell.
And I'm Patrick.
And
This is
Yes,
But Why?
Podcast.
All right, awesome. So, Ronnie, thank you so much for being with us on the podcast. I really appreciate you coming and chatting with me.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Cool. So, first question, just to kick her off, how did you get involved with theater? Were you in high school or college, or was it yesterday, or how did it bloom for you?
That's a good question. I was not a huge theater person, I would say, in my life. Like, in high school, I had friends that did theater, but I took, like, a stagecraft class just because, like, that was, like, the closest I wanted to get to the theater. It was like, I could sew some costumes, I can build some sets, but I'm just... There's a part of, like, the theater personality that I feel like I don't have, but I know I do. Like, the showman, like, that kind of stuff. I know it's in me somewhere, but I, like, try very hard to, like, keep that stuffed down as far as possible. So I've always liked to be, like, theater and film adjacent, but not... I never imagined myself being, like, starring in it. I just thought I'd be a part of, like, a production or something somehow.
So did you do plays and stuff? Did you, like, meaning when you did the stagecraft, did you, like, build the sets for the High School Musical, or
Yep.
was it, like, Shakespeare or whatever?
It was, like, whatever they were putting on, you know, that during that semester that we were... So sometimes it would be, like, a musical review, or, yeah, they would be doing, like, one-act play stuff, and, like, whatever. We would just alter the costumes and, you know, help build whatever set they would give us, like, here, we're doing this, and I'd go just do it. Like, it was fun. I knew how to use tools because, like, I grew up, you know, with my dad doing a lot of DIY projects and stuff. So, like, that's what really was exciting for me. I was like, oh, I could use, like, power tools. That's cool. Like, okay, fun. Like, I can do that.
Oh, that's good. Cool. So you were, like, definitely a kid who at least had some advanced experience with it. You weren't, like, walking in going, like, so this is a hammer, huh?
Right, yeah. Like, my dad... He also sewed when I was younger, so, like, I knew, like, how to do all these things, and I had, like, extra credits, but, yeah, I wasn't going to perform. I was too cool to be a performer at that time.
It's funny that you would say you're too cool, and yet somehow the like, art that you found yourself in, improv, which is definitely dubbed as the least coolest of all performing.
That's the funny thing, like, I feel like to improvisers... we feel like we're, like, the least cool, but for people that don't know shit about improv, they're always like, I can't believe you do that. How do you just get up there? You know, so there's still that, like, intrigue / like, they just don't know. So they're like, oh, okay, that must be very, very complicated to do. So you just kind of, I just hide in that little wave of, like, yeah, it's very difficult to get on stage and have to be funny or whatever and not know where it's going to come from. Yeah.
Wow.
Very difficult.
People are very nice to you about being an improviser, because people are often like, that's lame, why do you do it? To me, all the time.
Oh, see, I feel like I don't go around, like, preaching the improv gospel or anything like that. I'm like, it's something that I do, yes, but there was, like, for me, it was always just getting out and expressing myself more than anything else. And then there were a lot of people that told me I could not do improv, you know, in some sort of way, so then that just makes me want to do anything. Like, anytime anyone tells me no, then I'm like, oh, I'm going to prove you wrong, so.
Yeah. Man, I can't imagine. What jerks.
I mean,
I'm thinking you have nice people, but really, there's these people telling you can't do it? That is ridiculous.
It wasn't always, like, straight up, hey, you can't do this, but it was implied. Like, you know, in college, there was an improv troupe. I went to TCU, and, like, it was kind of just some stuff that some theater dudes put together, and they were definitely those kinds of dudes that were like, women aren't funny, like, they don't need to be a part of this. So it was those kinds of things. Or, you know, it was just like, we have this idea of who should be in our improv troupe, and you don't fit that mold in any way, so I don't know that there's a place for you here, or I don't know that you get our style of comedy, or you, like, are you advanced enough, have you seen enough Monty Python, or whatever the fuck it is. You know how people are, they're like, there's so many, like, snobs, or people that feel like their way is the only way to do something, so sometimes I have a hard time, like, dealing with those types of personalities, but I don't let them, like, discourage me. I'm just like, oh, I'll just go around you, I'll find another different way to do what I'm gonna do, and then hopefully later, like, they'll come back and be like, oh, you were right, or you were like, I'm so sorry I did that, but usually that doesn't happen. And usually they're just, like, quietly going about their lives, and I hope that they're in agony.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they're definitely in silent agony,
Yeah.
for sure. Thinking, I was so wrong. How could I have been so rude? I'm going to hell immediately. That's what they're thinking, just like over
Yeah,
and
I'd
over.
hope so.
Yeah.
I would hope so. I just want to... When I grow up, I just want to haunt as many people's memories as possible. That is my goal in life.
That seems good.
Mm-hmm.
Especially, for performing. So, like, when they finish watching a show that you're in, they go to sleep that night and they're haunted by
Exactly.
the amazing, perfect characters that you created in front of them.
that's why I like to play, like, characters that are, like, dark or have, like, something a little bit terrifying about them, because I just want people to remember, like, there's truth in comedy, and somewhere inside of me there's someone very terrifying and dark inside, so you never know when you might meet that person.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So I know you as a writer, that's where we first encountered one another.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of scary things, have you ever, like, written, like, horror screenplay or a scary play or anything that's, frightening?
No. I mean, I feel like my life is terrifying to most people. And I say that because I just have a lot of weird experiences, and I would say that my life is very much like a fish out of water story. Like, I'm an army kid, and I've moved around a lot, and I've just lived in a lot of different places, so I always feel like a bit of an outsider. So I usually kind of just write from that perspective, but I don't really try to scare people. I just try to, like, keep it real. Like, I feel like the truth is stranger than, like, any fiction that I could think of, so I just, like, try to get my truth out there, or the things that I see that I find remarkable.
Yeah, I think you're right about the truth being crazier than fiction. One of the hardest things I find in teaching comedy now is trying to get people to raise the stakes higher than real life.
Right.
Like, they'll do a whole scene, and I was like, that's great, but all of that could have happened.
I feel like I'm in that. Like, I'm deep in that cut right there. Yes, like, oh yeah, this is all stuff that could happen. I'm like, I know it did happen. Isn't it funny? They're like, we'll make it more absurd or something. I'm like, but life is absurd. Like, yeah, I could definitely relate to that.
Yeah, well, I mean, that happens a lot, if only just because I'm, it's such a, like, the world can be a yucky place.
Yes.
So I'm like, how do we raise ourselves so that when you're here in the comedy theater, you're not worried about real life? Like,
Exactly.
I don't need to think about the bills I haven't paid. I don't need to think about...
I like it. I want to think about a bucket of slime coming out of nowhere, just falling on my head. Like, that's much more fun than, like, I don't know, getting your lights turned off because you can pay the bill. I don't.
Yeah, it's very less fun.
Yes, less stressful than that,
Yeah, absolutely. I like slime. That's good. That reminds me of one, you can't do that on television.
Well, now you can do it in the comfort and joy of your own home. Kids are making slime all the time.
And pouring it on their family members?
I would hope so. I would hope so. But I feel like if your parents are buying you the slime supplies, like, you can't also pour it on them. Like, there's a line that you cannot cross if you want to continue to make the slime or whatever.
Like you can't mess with your accomplices.
Exactly.
Like, if
Because,
your parents...
don't you have to buy, like, I don't know, I feel like they use, like, laundry detergent and all kinds of weird stuff that costs lots of money to make it, which is another thing that I'm like, can't you just buy slime? Why do you have to make it?
I don't know how they make it, because thankfully my child is not old enough to ask me to make it. And also, if it's a toxic situation, I'm not handing it to him.
Completely toxic, but it just seems like it's like a lot of work for very little return. Because I don't know, my parents were never gonna buy me, like, laundry detergent, because it's so expensive, right? Like, kids eating Tide Pods. I'm still like, how did you afford to buy Tide Pods? Because I do my laundry every week, and I don't have that kind of money. I know. I'm like, I'm trying to use, like, Suavitel or something, not Tide.
I know. I was thinking that too. I'm like, Tide Pods. Wow, that's some swanky.
Yeah, that's like...
I've never used those pod things because I thought they were for the rich. I didn't.
Exactly. Like, I'm still, like, coming to terms with just using liquid detergent. Like, I'm like, oh, we don't have to use the crystals anymore. Like, you just have that little white film everywhere. We don't do that anymore.
Yeah, well, that's not a thing. But you can add it to the water. It'll make it sunny.
Yeah,
it's fine.
This thing says it'll do, like, 128 loads. Like, that's great. Forget this 54 crap or whatever, yeah.
Yeah, right? I don't know that the liquid really does anything, let's be honest. If I don't have or crusties on my clothes when I take it out, it's not clean enough.
Just use your leftover hand soap, put some water in it, shake it up, and then put that in the washer. There you go.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. I just use like the liquid from the Lysol wipes, like the bottom. Ew. You just pour it.
Yes, that sounds delicious.
Actually, I was just thinking about those kids and their like contests the other day about, the Tide Pod stuff, and then I think there's a new one where they're hurting themselves in some new and exciting way. And it's like, is this something that happens all the time and like I'm just hearing about it now because the internet? Or are these kids who have the internet so starved for some way to rebel that they're like, let's just eat poison and see how it goes?
Yeah, I don't know how that goes. I saw recently that kids were like snorting condoms. Like,
oh yes, that's what it was, which I don't understand.
I think it's hilarious. They're like, oh, on the camera, like trying not to vomit. It makes me laugh so hard because I'm just like, you're poor parents.
So they're snorting the latex of the condom so that it comes down the back of their throat?
And then they can pull the condom all the way through their mouth.
That's disgusting.
It's
horrifying.
Insane.
It's like the first time I saw a drug documentary about cocaine and they showed a person putting something through one nostril and coming out the other, and I was like,
that's like,
what?
Every time I think about cocaine, I think of that like visual image of someone just having like a hook that they can just like, they don't have any more cartilage or whatever in their nose.
Yeah.
Sounds fun.
Yeah, it's those scary things. Yeah, the after-school specials and such like that were definitely what kept me from doing these kinds of things.
Mostly it was for me, I was like always involved in some sort of like student organization or something, so I'm just like, I'm not a hypocrite. If I just painted a sign that said don't do drugs, I'm not going to do drugs.
How good of you.
That's how I was as a child, very serious.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, I was a woman of my word even before that meant anything.
I suppose that's a good thing to have, to like stand up for it. If you say it's true, then it's true, and if you're going to stand for something, I mean, heck, I know lots of people that say one thing and do another, so the fact that you stood up for that, that's pretty quality.
Yeah, but now I feel like I wasted a lot of time, like, standing for things that, like, maybe now I'm just like, man, who even cared? Like, I was, like, vegan for 4 years, like, and I'm just like, man, think of all the burgers I could have ate during that time. How much happier my life would have been if I could have worn leather shoes during that period.
Why did you go vegan at the time?
I liked to convince myself at the time that it wasn't because the dude that I was dating was vegan.
Oh.
I was like already basically like a vegetarian, but I was like a fast food vegetarian, so it was just like I ate like side salads, French fries, and like Taco Bell burritos and stuff. So it was just like a minor life adjustment to be like, oh, I'll just get this Taco Bell burrito without sour cream and cheese. So that's how I became a vegan. Like, and then I did it for 4 years. To prove a point, because I think me and that dude only dated for like a year and a half. And then I was like, I'm sticking with this for another like period of time, just so no one could tell me that I did it because I was dating that guy.
I like how somehow in this telling of the story, though, you seem to be admitting that you did it just for the guy.
It wasn't just for the guy. I mean,
but you wished you didn't do it.
It was easy. It was easy because he liked to cook and stuff. So it was just like, oh, well, if I just eat like this dude, then he'll make all my meals. So that works out. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. Did you find it at all healthier, or were you just
not the way that I did it? No,
yeah.
It was like, again, it was really like really sad drive-through salads and French fries. I think I got tonsillitis during that time, and my parents were convinced it was to do with my diet. I don't know. Maybe they were right. Who knows these days? But yeah, it was not the best choice for me personally. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
How old were you when you tried it?
I was like 19.
Huh.
Yeah, I was like from 19 to what, like my early 22, something like that. Yeah, it's like my first real boyfriend, all that kind of stuff. I was a late bloomer. It took me until college to date.
Oh, I hear ya. I mean, I have one guy that I would consider my first boyfriend in high school, but not. I mean, he is now married to another man, so really, that was my theater dating.
Yeah, there you go.
I was musicals, and then I dated gay men. So that's
this guy must have been in theater.
hilariously, he was not in theater. He was like the box office guy, but we made friends. And
he was a patron of the arts. So.
Mm-hmm. So funny. So when was the first time you went on stage for your to break the I'm just a tech person, now you can get on stage? How did you get there?
Well, when you're like the only like black kid like growing up or one of the few, like you're always thrust into the spotlight regardless of whether you want to be there or not. Okay. So like I feel like I've always had I've always stood out wherever I've been, like wherever I lived, so there's always a reason for someone to draw attention to me. Like when I remember being in like kindergarten and having like pigtails that were like stuck out like this, my teacher used to like ride me like I was a motorcycle. Like just things like that would just happen to me. So like yeah, and like I was like, you know, gifted and talented and all that stuff, so I was always like winning awards or giving a speech or doing something like that. So like I've always just been very like pushed to the forefront in my life. So I like just, it's just something I'm used to now. I'm like, yeah, I can talk in front of people. Like that's never been something that I've been worried about, is being able to compose myself or be like carry myself in front of a crowd, because I always feel like I'm so visible or hyper visible, as they say.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So you were like, if they can see me anyway, I might as well have something to say? Yep,
pretty much. Like I remember it being in level 1, even after having like done improv, you know, in college a little bit and stuff, and still I'm a reserved person, so I think people always think that maybe I'm nervous or I'm shy or whatever, but I'm just one of those people, if I don't have something to say, I'm just not going to say stuff, and I don't feel like I have to be ultra friendly or say a lot to make people like me. Like eventually I feel like if we work together, interact, like that will come, so I don't have to force it.
Wow. Yeah. That's really like, I don't know, smart and confident. Like I don't know that I've ever met anyone of any age who's like, I don't mind what people think of me up front, and like I like the idea that's like I'll let it, you know, the time they'll spend with me, they'll decide if they like me or not like me. It's like, that's so cool. Like, I don't know, I'm just constantly worried, even when I'm teaching, and I'm high status when I'm teaching. Right. Technically, it shouldn't matter at all whether they like me or not, but I still get nervous sometimes. I'm like, oh God, I'm so uncool. Like, but I don't know.
I think for me, it's because I've lived so many different places and I never knew how I would be accepted. And so when it's like outside of your control, you just kind of learn to deal with whatever happens. Because I mean, literally, I was like homecoming queen in high school, but I was also like a big nerd in middle and elementary school. Like people used to bully me and like follow me home from school. So like when you've lived all those different like lives, you're just like, well, it's not really up to me to decide. Like it's up to whoever like these new people are that are going to be in my life. They're going to decide how they want to treat me, so I could just be consistent on who I am and see what happens. Like,
wow,
yeah,
that's very cool. I wish I had your strength.
Yeah, I don't know that it's strength. It's mostly like I just ignore other people a lot. Like I grew up in a household where my parents were like, the only friends you have are your brother and your sister. The rest of these people are acquaintances. Like, so, you know, and that helps when you're like an army brat and you move a lot, because you're like, whatever, I'm only gonna know these people for 2 years and then I'm gonna move somewhere else and they're not gonna matter to me. So it's like a blessing and a curse, I would say.
Yeah. I guess I feel like that now, like as I've gotten older, because when I got out of college, I moved around a bunch, and like I had great friends and good experiences each time, but I don't really talk to a lot of them. And sometimes I feel really bad about it, but sometimes I'm like, it's okay, we had our time, and we spent time, we were important to each other in the moment, and now we're off doing other things, you know?
Yeah, like I never worry about a friendship, like when it's going to end, or like, are we always going to be friends? Because I found like in my life, you never know who you're just gonna continue to be friends with. Like you like will run into someone and it'll be just picking up where you left off. Or like during South by, I had a friend come into town and she was looking for like business contacts, and we literally hadn't seen each other in 10 years, but we hung out like most of South by, and it was just like, hey, like wow, this is just like when we were teenagers. Like, you know, so like I love that kind of stuff. It's always surprising. Like, you know, I think the people who you're supposed to know and you're supposed to grow with, like you always are able to somehow keep tabs on each other, and then when your paths cross, you have so much to catch up on and so many wonderful stories and surprising turns that you guys can discuss in your lives. So it's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's cool. I like how I found, like, after college, I reconnected, especially with the advent of, like, Facebook, I reconnected with people that I wasn't really close friends with while I was in college. Like, there was a handful that were, like, my closer friends while I was there, but since graduating and in the future years, I have, like, happened to live in the same city as one other person, or, like, this one girl started a blog and I just started reading it because I knew her at first. And then years and years passed, I'm still reading it, and I was like, wow, you have just... And she built up, like, a big audience and stuff, and it was like, you have really inspired me. Like, all the work that you've done, we knew each other in a very side way, but look at you. You're just, like, every day I can read something and feel like, oh, yes, okay, cool, she's doing it. Like, if she can do it, I can do it.
Exactly. And I like that now we're able to share more of ourselves, and, like, then you have those kinds of exchanges where someone can really make an impact on your life, as opposed to just being like, oh yeah, we sat next to each other in geography for like a year. You know,
Yeah,
they used to let me copy their homework. It was cool.
I don't know who it is. I'm so sorry. Oh, it's a package.
Ooh.
Sorry.
Hey man, I know how important those Amazon deliveries are.
Yeah, I guess we should do that.
Yeah.
My husband needed it overnight, so...
Ooh, fancy.
Of course.
I got one today, and it was like a religious book from my mom, and I was like, man, I was very upset. Because I was like, I wasn't expecting an Amazon delivery, and then I'm like, I put it down, and then I was like, oh yeah, what is this? And it's just like, learning how to love God and yourself or something, and I was like, boo! Who needs this?
So your mom's sending you religious books?
Oh, my mother, yeah, she loves to send me Joyce Meyer. That's her one right now. But I'm not really into, like, those prosperity gospel preachers.
Sure.
But it's nice. It's a nice sentiment. It's nice.
Yeah.
I was like, it was her birthday yesterday. Yeah, I got a gift. It's
Wow, that's nice of her.
Yeah. That's how you know I'm loved.
Right?
Yes.
I was like, call your other siblings and find out if they got a gift. They don't really know if you're loved. You're the most loved.
I feel like my brother would not appreciate that type of gift from my mom, and my sister, I don't think she would be jealous. Like, yeah, I don't think that we'd get jealous like that, no. Because we're all such different people.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it'll be fine.
And you're the only one of the three that could potentially be convinced to read the religious books?
I think that goes with my personality. Like, I just like to pull all kinds of inspiration from all over. I think that's what like, even in improv, since we're on that topic somewhat, like, when I started taking classes, I just was like, oh, I'm taking a class at, like, every theater that I could afford at the time. I won't say every theater because I don't want anyone to feel left out. But yeah, like, I was taking, like, level one place, and a writing class another, and, like, you know, like, I always try to get as much information thrown at me as once and get that structure of going to, like, class or writing every week or whatever it is, because that's how I know I won't, like, go astray. Because I'm one of those people that I get very excited about everything, and then I want to do it all at that moment. So, like, I just have to, like, I'm locked in here, I can't do anything else, I don't have the money or the time to, like, do it, because if not, I'll be like, oh yeah, and I'm taking piano lessons and flute lessons and, you know, doing all kinds of other stuff. Yeah, so I have to, like, go all in.
Yeah. Man, really all in.
Mm-hmm.
So when you first took your, where did you take your first improv class, and how did it strike you?
I took my first class, I would say, at the New Movement when it was on the East Side.
Oh.
Yeah. And I only did that because I had friends that were going to take it, and I wanted to take a class, but I didn't want to do it by myself. Of course, who wants to do that? So I took a class, and it was fun. I remember level one being, like, feeling very confident the first time I took it, which is weird because then I took it, like, years later at Cold Town, and then I was, like, the quietest person in the room. Like, people were, like, so shocked by the time we graduated that, like, I had become a performer because I was, like, so different, I think, that second time. But I think that's because, like, I had gone through a lot of, like, personal things, and, like, and then I had a real purpose for being there, because before it was just, like, something to do with my friends, and then The second time around, when I started taking classes more seriously, it was mostly because I was like, oh yeah, I have some shit to say. Like, now I'm just trying to get more confident in standing here and speaking my truth, because I think sometimes I can bring things to the table that people may not want to hear. It might be challenging, or it might be dark, or whatever it is. And so it was being confident in, I'm not going to bum everybody out just because my perspective is different. Like, I can still pepper in some humor, or pepper in some teaching or learning moments in there. I don't know. So
Yeah. Was there an event that like spurred you on that second time? Because you said your perspective had changed. You were ready to communicate your truths, whereas previously it was like not about that. Was there, some need? What made the new need in you need to be expressed?
There were a lot of different things. Let's see. So my older sister, she's a television writer in LA, and she had been living in Dallas, and she got laid off from like a TV station. She was working there, and then she found out she had like cancer, and it was like this whole thing. And so then, like, when all of her treatment and everything was done, she was like, I'm moving to LA, I'm gonna be a writer. And like, I had been listening to like every podcast ever, like, about comedy, and I was like, oh yeah, you're gonna have to do improv. And she was like, what? And I was like, yeah, you're gonna have to. Like, I don't know, when I'm at work, that's what I do, is listen to comedians, and basically everyone started doing improv, and that's how they did anything. So I somehow convinced her to take a class at Second City, and then I went and saw her perform, and I've never seen anybody on a Second City stage act like they did not want to be there more so than my sister. And it just made me laugh so hard that I was like, fine, I mean, if she's gonna get up there like with her like mouth all twisted and her arms folded across her chest like she doesn't want to be there, then at least I could do a little bit better than that. So like, that took all the pressure off of me. I was like, I don't have to be good, I just gotta get up there and not look like I don't want to be. Like, literally, like, she just looks so angry. So I just teased her about that. But yeah, I just, being in Austin, I've been here for like 10 years or so now, and I used to like come here like in high school, and before like I even lived here, like I was just always here because of music and art and all that kind of stuff. And I just never really saw anybody that looked like me like really have a voice in anything, like music, whatever it is. Like, it was always like, if there was someone there, it was like one of like 2 or 3, and then we were just like on the outskirts, and the type of conversation I would get, it's like, how did you get in? It was always like an inquisition, like, what are you doing here? You're not supposed to be here, like that kind of stuff. Oh. So, I mean, that gets old, and I just know so many women of color, that have had like very different experiences of Austin, and I wanted to be one of the people that could articulate that, because I know I've had very different experiences of Austin, from like violence and, people's political or whatever social, points of view and all that kind of stuff. I feel like I'm constantly challenged, or feel like I'm put on the spot often to deal with other people and how they accept my difference. But so now it's just like, I want to get out there and just express my opinion and be like, yeah, this is some bullshit that I deal with all the time. And like, I feel like I can articulate that in a way that is fun or funny or entertaining, at least. So that's what I try to do.
Good. That's awesome. As far as like you're doing writing and performing, do you feel like any of the projects you're working on right now are communicating, which one do you think is communicating the best what you're initially talking about, putting your point of view out there, making people understand the way you see things? Is there a particular project that you find that your voice is best used, or are you just using different parts of your experience in different projects?
I'm just using different parts of my experience for different projects, for sure. That was one thing, like, when I was in undergrad, I wrote for, like, a film review website, and I did a lot of, like, film criticism and things like that, and I always felt like a fraud doing that, just because I'm like, I'm not making anything, I'm just talking shit about somebody else's work, and it just, like, didn't really feel necessary to do that for me. So for me now, it's just about the self-expression and getting it out there, and I think the most rewarding part of the whole process is how it's received, and like if it makes someone upset, that's cool. If it makes someone think, if it reminds them of their relationship with someone they know, like all that is exciting and fun. Like like they're always like, don't read the comments, but I love reading. Like when I do something, I'm like, especially if it's like a video or something, I love reading the comments because I'm like, somebody took the time and the energy to watch this, and then they felt compelled to write a sentence or whatever it was about. Like that's so exciting for me because it's like you can actually see the influence of your work, as opposed to just pushing stuff out there and then like hoping that it has a result or a hit. Like that's just been wild for me because I'm like, no way, like people. And then when people actually care, or they're like, hey, I'm gonna make a point to come see it, you're like, really? Because I remember when I was totally invisible, just running these streets and nobody gave a shit about me. Now you actually care. Like, yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think the fact that you're like making more connections could be born of the fact that now you're opening yourself up to sharing your own experiences?
I think so. I think a lot of people who've known me for a long time didn't know how like deeply I think about things or how I feel about things because I have like a surface of like, oh yeah, I'm just like a cool collected person, I'm just chilling, whatever. But the more that I've been open, the more vulnerable I've been, the more I feel like people have been drawn to me, or they've asked me to even go further and explain, like why I have certain points of view or why I choose to express myself in certain ways. So that's been the most fascinating part, because I think before it was just like, this person is confident and maybe a little militant and maybe this, but now they're like, oh wow, but I get it. There are reasons. There's like, this isn't born just to be difficult. This is all like, this is a defense mechanism, but it's also like how you kind of have to be if you've had my experiences in life, so.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make anybody wrong, or, I think that's what happens when you truly celebrate diversity, or you are including diversity, is like, you have to learn how to deal with people that are different from you, and don't wake up every morning and there's like, that are happy that the sun is shining. Like, not everybody deals with the sun that way. So like, it is nice to be like, but it's okay. Like, it's okay if I'm angry at the sun in the morning. Like, we could still get down in the afternoon, like when I've gotten used to the day, like, so yeah, it's just like fun, because I think a lot of people, especially in this day and age, want everyone to agree with them, or they want to put a little bow on every conversation and be like, okay, but we can walk around being friends, or we can't leave this conversation where we're both marinating on something uncomfortable. They always want it to be nice and tidy. And I think for me, I love challenging people, and I love to be challenged, and I think that that's healthy in any relationship.
Yeah. I also think to a certain extent, because you bring up the idea of like finishing a conversation and feeling like everything's resolved, like sometimes I think the best personal revelations I've ever had have been after a tough conversation, when I'm able to like take the time to think about it, or like to let it settle in me, and then it's like, oh wait, now I totally understand. Because like, I mean, we're just human brains. Like, to take it all in and to like see and experience and acknowledge and respect another person's point of view, you need a little bit of while to soak it in.
Yeah.
And that's why, I mean, similarly to what you're talking about, where it's like people just want to agree, I think it's because a lot of times people just don't want to put in the effort of the uncomfortability.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you might have to think. It's real hard. And you might have to like be okay with having a different point of view. Like sometimes I'm like, yeah, I don't think that, but it's cool that you do.
Right.
Like, I'm not going to murder you.
Exactly.
Like, there's so much insanity right now where like people get so mad about people not agreeing, or about like, seeing things like in their Facebook feed that they don't agree with. And I'm like, you have the power. Like, if you really want to anesthetize yourself, you can just set it up so that the only people you see are the ones that agree with you, and you can get rid of that, you can unfriend that weird uncle, and you can block your mom's new husband who says weird stuff. Like,
but that's like totally unrealistic on how you live your life. Like, I wish I could go. Like, I remember I worked at this one company where I had a problem with she wasn't my boss, but she was like my boss's boss or something like that. And she just didn't like me for whatever freaking reason. And I'm like, I'm not going to quit my job because this lady doesn't like me. Like, she was, like, in charge of hiring decisions, and every time I would get so far, I wouldn't get a job. And then one time she, like, said something directly to me that I was like, okay, well, now at least I have something and I can go to HR and we can talk about this. And, like, people were like, I can't believe you're going to do this. You're going to have this meeting. It's career suicide. And I'm like, one, don't really care about this career that much. Two, like, I'm not afraid of, like, the repercussions of doing what I have to do to make sure that I feel safe and protected in this, like, workspace. And, like, the worst thing that they could do would be to fire me. And, like, that wouldn't be that bad, like, you know? So, like, yeah, I'm just, like, I'm not afraid of having, like, the hard conversations or to let someone know how they've made me feel. I think a lot of people like to use politeness as an excuse not to articulate their feelings or not to take care of themselves. But I know that if I don't take care of myself, nobody else will. There's not, like, a brigade of people out here just volunteering to, like, be, like, cover for Black women out here for anything. So it's just, like, and that's something that my parents instilled in me from, like, a child. Like, I remember little things, like, going to a fast food restaurant and being, like, 4 or 5, and my dad's like, what do you want? And I'd be like, oh, Happy Meal or whatever, and he's like, well, go up there and order it. Like, you know, and being like, no, like, you know, you're little, you don't want to go talk to these people. But my parents have never been the type of parents that were like, oh, I'm going to coddle you and, like, make you feel like, you know, I'm going to be here to protect you in every moment. They're like, nah, man, like, go figure it out. So that's what I've had to do. And I think after you've done that for enough time, that confidence and everything is just there. It's not something you have to fabricate or, you know, a shield that you have to put on. It's just, I've somehow managed to survive this many years taking care of myself, so something must be working right.
Yeah, right. I want some parenting tips from your parents. He's a baby
just
yet,
throw him in
but,
the pool
you
and
know.
let him swim.
Can I just tell you that, like, my family legit told me that that's how they taught me how to swim, and I don't know if it's true or not. Maybe it is.
Can you swim to the
But
pool?
I did. I can't swim, but I don't know if that's how they did it. And when I had the baby, I looked it up to see if you could do that, like if that really was a way to do it. And it was like, do not this to your baby.
Your child.
You're going to drown a baby.
Month of its life.
Like I appreciate the idea that he was in water, so he like should understand how to swim. But he wasn't swimming inside of you. He was like just in a spot. Like,
yeah.
You know, he didn't have to like move his arms and legs. You know, like, it's not how it works anymore. Like,
that's too
you can't just do that. And I was like, okay, cool, good to know.
Yeah, don't you have to like start by dipping the head under and then bringing them back? I don't know. I was watching TV one day and I saw a baby getting lessons.
Yeah. No, I mean, what's weird is the baby has to like understand that they're not going to die once they get the liquid over to them. But like, I feel like they get that in baths. Like every time I wash his hair, I have to pour water over his head, and he has this moment where the water washes over, and he goes like, and I'm like, you're alive, you're fine, it's okay. And so he's getting used to it. He doesn't love it, but you know what you gonna do. So
that's
eventually
what the pool
it'll be
is like, just
your
getting
face
your
in.
head dunked with water. Like,
well, at least at the beginning.
Yeah.
To get through that initial stage.
I think babies should go to like Six Flags first, and then just get water splashed at them at all different angles, and then they'll be much more excited to swim.
Plus, the photos would be adorable.
Oh my god. A little baby roller coaster.
Just tiny little photos of babies getting water on their face from every angle. Ah! Ooh, ah! Even the crying pictures would be adorable.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I'm probably a bad mother, but I definitely will let my baby cry sometimes, and I'll be like, "You're adorable.
You're all, let me get some
cry.
photos for the gram."
Yeah,
I mean, did you see like that video where they like brought the Easter Bunny into the class, and this little girl, like, she looks so terrified. It is like so sad, and like it's funny though. I'm like, but it's funny though, and I don't think we're supposed to laugh because I think it was like a traumatic moment for this child, but.
And we all have
the images
moments.
are beautiful. I mean, exactly. I'm like, you know, we all have been traumatized. That was an adorable way to be traumatized. And now she's like a viral star, and it's like you can't take that away from like people. Like their families like on like YouTube and stuff. Like, this is wrong. My child was like so like hurt and scared by this, and everyone's like, it was still funny. Like I know she's a young child. But it was still hilarious.
Well, I mean, how many videos are there where there's, like, a kid or somebody who, like, smashes their face and everyone laughs and thinks it's great? It's like, that person was hurt.
Yeah.
Maybe not emotionally or, like, you know, traumatized or whatever, but
I feel like that we are doing the emotional damage by watching the video. I think that's how that goes. Yeah, they were physically hurt, and then we came around and did all the emotional damage later on. By laughing.
Do you have any projects in the coffers right now that are like messages or like stories or any sort of, is there anything nagging inside of you to come out to share?
No, not right now, I don't think. I get, like, weird moments of inspiration. And again, it mostly comes from just living my life, and then something crazy happens to me. Like towards the end of last year, I was obsessed with how I am treated in, like, hospitals and things like that. Mm-hmm. Because I twisted my ankle, and then I went to the ER, and the nurse, like, it was a male nurse. And, like, I hadn't been there for, like, 15 minutes when he was like, just so you know, my wife's black. Like, and it was just like random, and like it was like 5 o'clock in the morning. My ankle was like really hurting as I had like hurt it, and then I like of course was like an idiot, and I just like ran around and like did all this stuff with my friends, and then I was like, I should go to the ER because this really hurts. And then he like told me that, and then he was like talking to me about his like a movie that he liked, and it was Gran Torino with Clint Eastwood, and I was like, oh yeah, the Clint Eastwood Get Off My Lawn, like whatever movie. Yeah. And he was like, no, that's not how it is at all. And then like, so then he tells me the movie, like the synopsis, and I'm like, the Clint Eastwood Get Off My Lawn movie. Yep. Mm-hmm. I was right the first time. And like, it was just like such a weird like interaction, because again, like I hadn't had any treatment, any pain meds, and this dude is like trying to bond with me, and I'm like, I'm in pain and I don't give a shit about your existence right now, to the point where I had to tell him like, hey man, like I know you're a great nurse and everything, but if you're not telling me what's going in the IV bag or like what pain medication y'all about to give me so I can stop hurting, I don't want to talk to you because you're making me feel like an asshole. But I'm not an asshole. I'm in pain. Like, I'm literally here because I need a service. And you've made this about yourself. Like, and so I have such moments like that where it's hard for me to even shake them. Because I'm just like, no, all that happened. I was there. And, like, so it takes me a while to, like, unpack them. So I like to, like, flip them and see what use I can get out of those kinds of things. Like, I've done stand-up material, I've done sketch material off of that kind of stuff. And so that's mostly, like, where I like to live, is, like, being inspired by real life. But there's so many different ways you can tell one story, and, like, which is the best, or which do I feel more comfortable with, which is going to be harder for me. Like, I like to try all those different ways out.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. I think it's probably just like me avoiding something somehow too, but it's fun.
I don't know. It sounds like you're dealing with stuff in a direct way. I mean, you could very much not deal with that entire encounter and just chalk it up to some guy being a little self-centered, but it seems like it was probably more than that.
Oh, definitely.
And so, you know, you have to sort of examine that, if only just because if it happens to you again, what are you going to do? Or when it happens to you again, rather. It's like, are you like, stop trying to relate to me.
Exactly.
I don't want to relate.
I'm like, that's great that you have like a black wife. Maybe we're related. Where do we go with that conversation? Like, cool. So, if you guys get divorced, does that mean we could date? Where is the? Well, I don't understand what the next step in that conversation was supposed to have been. Like, I'm pretty sure it wasn't me like getting upset with him for suggesting a movie, but like, I still don't know what the proper next step would have been. So,
yeah, it would seem an improper way to try to connect with you in some way. Yeah. It's like, this doesn't mean anything to me.
And I think right now, like, that's where we are in like a lot of ways, is people want to do these weird ways of like getting you to speak about certain things because they want to learn or they're curious or whatever it is, but you're like, I don't want to talk about Black Lives Matter today. I really don't want to do that. Like, so it's like, how do you politely say that? How do you make people understand that it's not my job to teach you, or like, you know, that kind of stuff. So,
well, honestly, it would be one thing if somebody wanted to have a conversation, like an actual conversation, like, hey, while you're waiting, let's talk about politics. But like, you know, to approach it in such a way that's like to the side, where it's like, oh yeah, I know a person who once did that same thing that you did. Okay, what do you want to know? Because
Right.
what are you talking about?
It's like if I got, like,
Non sequitur, bro.
arrested or something, and I'm, like, in the cop car, and the cop's like, so what do you think about us killing all these black people? Like, and I'm just in the backseat, like, I don't want to talk about this right now.
Right. That's because you're right.
Exactly. I'm like, I don't want to do this. No, not right now. Can I talk to my lawyer and a couple other people first?
Yeah. Like, I feel like this is a really weird question.
Exactly. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's like, hey, this is it. Like I work hard. I have a job, therefore I have health insurance, and still I can't go to the fucking ER without being asked about, like, race relations and stuff like that. It's like, no.
Plus 5 a.m.
Yes.
You're like, really early for this convo, guys.
Yes, exactly.
Let me have a lot of coffee, and then you need to be a person I care about to have this conversation.
And I'm like, I know you must not really get to see too many people here at the clinic at 5 a.m. or whatever, but I didn't come in here that was not why I came in here. I came in here because my ankle fucking hurts, like, really bad. Yeah.
Yeah. I like what you said earlier, too. Well, like, it's not your job to teach him.
Mm-mm.
Like, it's not your responsibility to make you feel more comfortable about things that you're not comfortable about. Just because I reminded you of something.
Yeah.
Like, sorry.
I'm like, can you just, like, download your whole, like, nursing degree? Like, give me that information if we're going to be swapping tails here.
Yeah,
Like,
right?
Yeah. So, yeah, I just find, like, and then, so things like that, like, I just marinate on them, and I think, like, it'll just randomly come to mind, like, what was the intention there? So I'm just like, do people really walk around, like, initiating horrible, like, conversations with people just because they finally found someone that was different for them that they could, like, talk to? Because I feel like that's how my life is. Like, a lot of people just presenting me with stuff like, this is not the time or the place that I want to discuss this, and then trying to find polite ways to, like, get out of it.
Yeah, that is. I mean, the only similar experience that I have is currently parenting. Strangers come up to me all the time and tell me what to do.
Yeah.
On a regular basis. They'll be like, well, you need to make sure this. And I want to be like, I don't have to do anything.
Yeah, that's like I guess that would be kind of what it is like to be like a person
It's
of
very
color.
low-key comparison. But
yeah, no, but it is like, because I'll see people be like, oh my god, I saw this new brush on television and it spins or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, that shit would like get real tangled in my hair. Like, I don't want to go down. But no, they had a girl and she was black and they did her hair. And I'm like, but is her hair exactly like mine? Like, you know, like you're like asking this question because you're trying to be nice. Or like, I'm not going to buy whatever InStyler or whatever brush it is on TV. That's real cool that you saw an infomercial and you thought about my hair texture, but stop. Like, you know, that's like a lot of, those are like the type of conversations you have a lot of times when you're different. Is someone being like, oh my god, I saw something that reminded me of you. And you're like, why did that remind you of me? Why?
yeah, sometimes I wonder if it has a lot to do with the fact that, like, you know, now that we're hopefully moving towards a better place where it's not so like, this person's different from me, let's figure it out and talk about it, and more like, let's just let it be.
Yeah.
Like, we don't have to, like, discuss it. We can acknowledge it if it feels necessary to acknowledge, but it's like, I don't know. I have a weird perception of it, too.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, because, like, well, people will get upset about something, and then you're just like, well, but why do you care? Like, oh, I read in this newspaper that this person said this, and you're like, but there's like 50,000 other newspapers. You could just read a different one that makes you happy. Like, and then you don't even have to reflect on that other thing that someone said. Yeah, they could be wrong or whatever. It's delusional, whatever you want to say, but let them have that. Let them have their delusion. Maybe it helps them sleep at night. I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and sometimes I'm like, you know, you got to open your mind to where a person's at. Like, for instance, this is a very radical example, but my husband used to work for Alex Jones.
Ooh.
And because we spent time with him, now when I see him, I mean, when we see him now, my husband's critiques are well-informed. But I try to be like, you know, I try to remember what he said when he was working there. Because right now he's very like, he doesn't work there anymore. He's very like against the whole idea. And so he'll always rip it to shreds, whatever happens. But because we both were, we were dating when he worked there, and like I remember at the time being like, this is not the crowd that we really need to be around, but it was a good job and it was good money, and he learned so much from doing it that it was like, like so I like to play the devil's advocate when he gets upset about stuff, and I was like, well, sure, he's mad, he's getting a divorce, having a hard time, roll it off, and he'll be like, that's not, doesn't have a right, and I go, yeah, but I mean, Betty's real sad.
He's just a human, man.
He's a sad
his
guy.
heart's breaking. His family's disintegrating.
He was yelling he was like, his voice sounds like crap. Yeah, because he's always yelling. He feels like he has to fight an injustice that's somehow right around
There's
him.
a part of me that is like
know.
that. I don't know if it's because I'm a Libra or what it is, but I love to argue like the wrong side of things.
Oh, me too.
I love to like just justify horrible stuff just because it's funny. And I can switch it up on people all the time, and then they're like, I can't believe you just said that. I'm like, it's easy to say anything. You could come up with an argument to justify anything.
Yeah.
It's fun. There are people that hate themselves. That's what I think is funny. I'm like, there are people so consumed by hatred of themselves, and they've been told they're wrong or whatever so much that they believe it. So yeah, we can believe anything. We can argue anything. Even if it's detrimental to ourselves, we can still do. I was like, come on. I guess because I'm maybe because I have mental health issues, depression, that kind of stuff. I'm like, some days I wake up and I think I am the worst person ever. So yeah, I can see why someone would hate me, but whatevs. It's still me. It's not a problem for me to see the darkness in myself or any other person and make fun of that or poke fun of it.
Yeah. Well, I think it's important. I like doing the devil's advocate thing. I like, I especially like it because I can argue any point and no one ever has to know what I really think. Because I don't really, long before the political climate got a little touchy, I wasn't really telling people what I actually thought. Largely because I grew up in politics. My mom was very, very political, and so we were at marches, and I was holding picket signs as a child, all sorts of stuff, and then I kind of got burnt out of it.
Right.
And I'm like, yeah, I'm good. And people are like, well, don't you want to go to this march? And I was like, no, thank you. And they're like, but it's very important. And I go, and you should go. But I marched, and I held picket signs, and I yelled things at 7 and 10 and 12. And you know why I got into theater is because I was standing in a crowd of people with picket signs trying to get somebody's attention, so I'd do a song and dance number, and they'd all look and they'd clap, and then I got what I wanted.
I feel like there's a lot of different ways to be involved, be civically minded, do all these things, and I don't know that it's always doing showing up at a protest or whatever. And yeah, I was younger and I used to do all that kind of stuff, and it wasn't with my parents. It was I was a kid that was students were free to bet. We were just kids being idealists or whatever, and we would start all these organizations. I remember being part of police advisory councils, teenage police advisory councils and things like that, just because I wanted to be involved and do all these kinds of things, partially because it would get you into good colleges and stuff like that, but also because I really cared. And yeah, so I just think that you can't, I think in the moment when it's of the moment, people wanted to show that they were there and be there for the gram or whatever, but it's what does your collected life's work look like? What have you done? What have you been consistent in your messaging and the things that you care about? Do you constantly challenge your parents, or did you start challenging your parents when it was cool to do so? Now that it's cool not to go home for Thanksgiving or whatever, is this the only time that you ever had these disagreements in your family and stuff like that? Because I think everyone thinks the work it's going to be quick, and it's no, it's always been long and arduous work. And I think if you're just now dipping your toe in the conversation, you can get impatient and get frustrated, but anyone that's truly been there knows it's very incremental, very slow, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, all that kind of stuff is in play here. So you can't expect one conversation, one post, one rally, one whatever to really do that much.
Yeah. Yeah. Plus the bureaucracy of actually getting anything done is immense.
Yeah.
And can feel insurmountable.
Exactly. And that's why the people who we know that do these kinds of things and they do it so well, they deserve our respect and our admiration and our attention, Maxine Waters and those types of people, because they've that's why they can do such things with, like, such finesse and such, like, shine or whatever, because they literally have been doing this forever. Like, they've been dealing with idiots, like, their whole life, and that's why they can, you know, you can just, with a turn of phrase, like, shut them down and stuff, because it's hard work, and they've got that muscle now. So I think sometimes in a rush to be a part of the conversation, a lot of people are putting in their opinions or putting themselves in a spotlight that they don't need to claim, because there's somebody that's been working harder and longer and really understands the nuances. So that's another thing that I try to also think about, is like, who needs me here for this conversation? Is it because I feel like I'm the only one that can have this discussion, or is it because I actually have something to bring to the table? Because I think those things can be different as well. Like, just because you're the only one doesn't mean you have to pick up all these, because then you're just burdening yourself with more things that maybe you don't need to. So
yeah. Plus, I feel like if you're trying to talk about something that maybe you don't have all the information about, you can paint yourself into a corner where it's like, you know, you're having a visceral reaction to something, and you try to say something. It happens to me a lot, where, like, I will viscerally react to something, and then I'll go back and erase the whole thing.
Exactly, yeah.
Like, it's like, no.
I say that about anything that comes out of my mouth, because I'm like, man, depending on my mood, what time I woke up, like, whatever, I know I could say anything, and, like, in that moment, it could be real for me, it could be true, but then maybe I'll think about it later, and I'll change my mind, or maybe I'll tweak a certain perspective, or whatever. So, like, I will own things that I say, and I'll be like, yeah, in that moment, that was true, or maybe for the sake of this conversation, that's the angle that I chose to take, so I'll own it in that way, like, yes, those words came out of my mouth, but I don't feel like we have to be tethered to a certain sentiment or a certain meaning forever, you know?
Yeah.
Like, no, I grew up, I read a different book, I fucking actually thought about what I said, before I said it that time. Like, you never know, like, what circumstance will change. So I think that for me, it's like always remembering, like, I don't know anything, and I can say a lot of things, but I know that I don't know anything, and I hope that you know when you're talking to me that I can be wrong, and I'm okay with being wrong. We're just out here discussing, you know, having a conversation. And I think as long as we're both pushing ourselves to get out of our comfort zones and to think greater and, you know, deeper, then I think that's what is to be gained. It's not about winning the debate. It's about furthering the discussion.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Sometimes I think that, similar to, I mean, it all ties together, but we were talking about earlier about people want just to have, just to see what they agree with. They want their Facebook feed to reflect only what they like, and they want people around them to have the same opinions as them. And I think that it is really, like, strong of you and smart to sort of be wise enough that you're like, it's okay to have different opinions at different times, and, you know, we can examine why a person feels that way, and sometimes they're evil, but sometimes they're just having a bad day, and I don't know, it's just a very smart way to look at things, and very mature. I feel like there's a lot of people that I know who just, you know, overreact to the tiniest little thing, and I'm like, you're wasting your energy on this. If you would like to be angry, you can, but you need to put it in a different, like, you need to make it work for you in a way that is not just freaking out and or responding to a Facebook post does nothing to change anything.
Exactly. I think I had a time where I was like that, like I would respond to anything. I used to love fighting people in the, like, comments of, like, the Statesman and stuff. Like, I would, like, cherish those moments because it was funny to me. But I think, yeah, you do mature and you're like, I can't just be out here trolling people all the time. That does no good for anyone. It's a waste of my energy. So, yeah, then it's like, let's have, like, productive debates, but also, like, create something just in general. Like, that's been more rewarding than anything else I've ever done because it's fun to have opinions, but it's another thing to be, like, a creator, you know?
Yeah. So as far as being a creator, what are the things that you're working on right now? Do you have an improv troupe? Do you have sketch shows or sketch troupes? What's the What's the situation?
So right now it's like April, so I'm looking forward to doing some festivals this summer. So I'll be doing DCM with Misconnections, ATX, Perennium, and Empty Promises. So I have 3 troops there. And then Damgina will be performing in Baltimore at the Charm City Festival in May. And then we're also performing in New Orleans at I want to say it's like the Black Girls Giggles Comedy Festival in July. So yeah, I have a lot of like traveling coming up for improv. I'm always trying to write something, whether it be sketch or stand-up stuff. That's like I've done a little bit of stand-up, but it's something I want to get more into. So I've been writing some stand-up stuff, so maybe I'll be out at some open mics. They don't really work with my work schedule, but yeah, I need to be out there doing that. And then I haven't really been focused on a sketch show or anything lately. I've had like some people ask me to partner with them on writing stuff, but right now I think I did my like one-woman show like at the end of last year for like advanced classes at Coletown, and so I'm tweaking that because that blended like solo sketch and stand-up. So I'm trying to figure out where I want to take that, because it is something like I really like writing for myself and writing for my voice, but I don't know that I want to continue just performing my own stuff. So I think I'm going to try more to write for other people and see how that goes, because I've done a little bit of that and it's been successful, but I think that's a really good skill to have. And also writing for people that aren't my friends or, you know, things like that. Like, I really want to start pushing myself to work with people that I just found in auditions or things like that, because I think that gives you a more, like, honest viewpoint of what it's like to work in this as an industry, as opposed to just doing, like, goofs with your friends. You know? Yeah.
You thought about taking workshops out of town? Because a lot of times you can find a different city that maybe has a different kind of crowd than here. Yeah. So it's not just all your people, you know.
Yeah. I wanted to travel and maybe do like an intensive or something, but it's hard with working. But
sure.
That's one of the things I want to look out for at the festivals that I'm attending this summer, is some workshops, and then maybe try to do like some online like Second City type stuff or whatever, because I feel like I have taken a lot of classes in Austin, but I'm excited, like, with the fallout, like, it's a whole new crop of classes and a whole new crop of teachers, so that'll be fun. And I mean, like, there's people like you and like Cody that I feel like I've really learned a lot from, so I'm really excited to have more opportunity to take more classes from them. And then there's just pushing myself outside of my comfort zone. Like, a couple of weeks ago I did like a musical improv show, which is like so not me, but like there's a little bit of that in Misconnection. So I think like taking classes that would be completely unexpected and things like that for myself is something that I also really want to do, like, because yeah, it's just fun. I love to make myself uncomfortable, because I think people always want to see how I'll react, and I know that I'm generally good in most situations, so I like to push myself outside of my comfort zone as well.
Yeah. No, that's fascinating. I like the fact that you're like, you know, when you're telling the story about the musical improv, it was like your face like lit up with like, oh God.
Well, it's funny.
It was so scary, huh? I mean, it's crazy.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I have so many
hard.
different sides of myself. Like, when I grew up, and I was in like 5th grade, I taught myself how to play tenor saxophone, and like I played bass clarinet and like jazz music as a child, and like I used to sing in the church choir. So there's like these parts of myself that I like forget, because like, you know, like I've moved and done so many different things in my life that I'm like, oh no, I have that skill, I just haven't worked with it in a while. So it's nice to get back out there and work those muscles and see what you remember and that kind of stuff. So.
Yeah. That's so totally cool. If you were to meet another person coming up in improv classes, or somebody that's just moved to town, either as a advice about Austin and what they should do, or just in an overall advice to a new performer or to somebody who's trying to make their way up, what would you say to them to keep them going, keep them creative, or inspired? That's what I'm looking for.
I would say if you are moving to Austin, don't believe any of the hype about Austin. The food isn't as great as they say. The city isn't as wonderful as they try to make it seem. The people aren't even as liberal and cool as they like try. All that stuff is just like phony BS. I would say try to do stuff that makes you uncomfortable and puts you outside of your comfort zone. If you know that you like to live in like a house with a yard and you need like whatever, then live in an apartment. Like do some stuff that like you wouldn't pick for yourself, but you need to pick for yourself to like challenge yourself a little bit more. Like if you have a cush job in like the tech industry, maybe when you first move here, maybe you should like be a barista or some shit like that. Like, you know, just like push yourself to do some stuff that you never thought you would have to do, because I think that's when you learn the most about who you are, and you just learn how to like survive. I know I lived here for 5 or 6 years working, and then I got laid off, and that changed my whole perspective of how, like, I saw this city. And, like, things like eating a breakfast taco, when you really have to worry about how much fucking money you're spending. Like, breakfast tacos aren't the holy grail, like they used to, you know, like they, like you would think. So, like, I think in Austin people get very comfortable because it is a relatively easy place to live, and then they go to places like New York or somewhere else, and then they're like, what? I was like, I want to go back. And so I think you can make this place be hard, and you can get a lot of growth out of this place, but you have to push yourself, because there are ways to lull yourself into thinking that this is an easy place to live or a fun spot to live. But when you do that, you're really missing out on a lot of the other things that the city has to offer, because all the bullshit legislation happens here. All, like, you know, the lawmakers and people from other places in Texas come here. And I think if you are here for some liberal utopia, music haven, blah, 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 then you are not actually living a true Texas or Austin experience.
Plus, music is not even that as much of a big deal as it used to be.
Yeah. And like, it's just not as good, to be honest. It's like there was a time where you could go and, like, go to shows as an underage person and, like, have your mind blown. Now it's like you have to have $35 or whatever it is to pay, like, you know, for the will call and all the other stuff. So it's like a different city, and I think people who have a privileged point of view think that it's a different, like, vibe than it actually is for people who do not grow up with, like, privilege in their life. Like, Austin is like, it's like a caricature of what it used to be. It's not that, like, yeah, it's a tech city now, so things are going to be more expensive. There is that ability to have fun and go to bars every night, but you're going to be spending $12 on those cocktails, not like $2 or whatever, you know. So just know that, and don't always. And I feel like also get out of whatever you're doing. Try to find another avenue for yourself. Like if you're in tech, don't have all your friends be your coworkers. Don't always hang out with the same people. If you're in comedy, don't just hang out with comedians. If you're in music, don't just hang out with musicians. Like, meet different people. Do all that kind of stuff, because everything doesn't need to be super inside baseball-y, and, like, only the people that are in the know can get your jokes or understand that he's playing a 12-string guitar instead of, like, it shouldn't be like that. We're only people that have all this, like, background knowledge of the industry or whatever that you do and can enjoy what you do. So
yeah, I always try to say too, like, you're not going to get good stories just talking to other comedians. Like, you need to go other places.
Yeah,
like I used to you know, I've had all sorts of weird jobs where it's like, and I also I worked for a temp agency for a long time, and I would always take the weirdest jobs. They would be like, this might be unusual, but I'd be like, all right, cool. What is it? Yeah.
Like, if you could stand in a warehouse and talk to somebody that you would never run into on, like, a normal day, that is a gift, and you should love it. Like, yeah. Because it's like, those are the type of people that, like, you remember, and you're like, man, did that guy really say that crazy thing to me? Like, you know, like, you're like, wow, okay, like, yeah, I love that. Like, even if it's just being in, like, a store, and I remember one day some lady was just like, do you have lotion in your purse? And I was like, yeah. And then she was like, went on this whole thing about how she was, like, at work and her hands were super ashy and she just needed some lotion, but they would make her go, like, to her locker, and, like, she could only do it at breaks. So I was just like, no, here, you can have some lotion. She was like, I knew that you were gonna, like, and she was so nice to me, and it was just, like, a weird exchange for someone just to give them, like, literally a drop of lotion so their hands wouldn't be dry.
Seems really crazy.
Yeah,
it's
she was just like, this place sucks.
I can't get to the locker.
Yeah, she was like, I'm working this register and I can't get to this locker. And I'm like, wow, like, these are adult people that this is their life. Like, they can't even put lotion on their hands when they want to. So you just, like, imagine if you're sitting at your office job and your boss is like, no, you cannot moisturize right now. Like, those kinds of things are funny.
Well, retail is weird. She worked in the retail store, right? Yeah, when I lived in New York City, I worked at the Gap, and when you walked in, they would write down everything you were wearing.
Yep.
So, like, you'd walk in, they'd look in your bag if you brought it, because of course you did.
Yes.
And then they would write down, it'd be like black dress, pink top, like...
I remember we had to carry clear purses. So they were like plastic purses that were like so cheap, they would fall apart like once every like 3 months. You'd have to get a new one. And like, yeah, they would check our stuff when we'd come in and go. And I'm like, have you ever been treated like a criminal at your job? Like, these are like fun experiences that everyone should have. Like, you know? So it's like stuff like that. Like, it's just fun to just see how other people live and how different a place can be for different people, Like, I'm always watching, like, when I'm at a restaurant, like, watching the wait staff and watching all those other people, because those are the moments where I find humor. Is like, oh, did you see that? Did you see that lady? Like, she put her tip on the table, and then when her friend went to the bathroom, she picked her tip back up and put it in her purse. Like, things like that,
Oh, my God. Yeah. That's funny. Oh, man. Oh, no, tipping, that's a whole nother ball game. Thank you so much for sitting down and chatting with me. I'm really excited.
Was it supposed to be funny, or was it supposed to be super serious?
No. I mean, we always talk about all sorts of different things, and I feel like whatever conversation that we have is necessary to have, because, we start talking about something that we care about, performing in theater and what that means, and then it evokes us to discuss different things. Like, I'm glad to know the different, like, things that inspire you, and like the way that you're you think about your performance. So even though you're right, you are quiet and you seem confident and cool, and it's like, but you put so much effort, and hearing you talk about the way your brain works and all this stuff. Now, it's really fascinating. And for me, I think not only is it helpful to people who are trying to have a journey in the arts, but any person who's like trying to be themselves and find their way. I mean, we started this conversation with you saying, like, I swung a hammer because I didn't know if performance was for me, and then finally found an opportunity for performance to help you communicate the world around you so that people could understand the way you see it. And I think that that's a great way of doing it. I mean, some people, take their experiences and push them down inside themselves and don't tell anyone. And it's like, nobody understands.
Like,
I was telling somebody today about how my Catholic guilt keeps me ever from having a thought about like any negative, like anytime I have a negative thought about my life, I immediately feel bad.
Wow.
I'm like, your life is fucking fine. Everything is all right. There's so many people in the world that are worse off than you. You need to stop complaining. But it's like, you have to honor every little feeling. Like you mentioned earlier about it's like, yeah, some days you wake up and you're like, get away from me with your stupid coffee cup. I won't talk to you until 11 a.m.
Right.
And that's a valid thing,
it's
valid. But I don't allow myself those things. So to hear you say that, I'm like, okay, you're right. Yes, thank you. I will allow myself to have a bad day.
Who else is going to do it? Who else is going to let you have a bad day?
No, you're right.
I was like, you walk into like anywhere and someone's going to command you to smile, so you have to be like, nah, fuck you. I'm not smiling today.
Oh, that's so funny. Yeah, no, people don't usually, even though one would imagine that I would be a little approachable in retail stores, people don't really talk to me too much because I usually just keep kind of an angry face on.
You're so lucky. Even when I try to look angry. I think it's because I wear, like, bright colors too much. Like, that people think that I'm approachable. And I'm like, get away from me.
Well, now that I have the baby, everyone approaches me at all times. And like I said, tells me what to do and how to do it.
They're like, does he have an amber bracelet or necklace or whatever to team and all that kind of stuff? You're like, who are you?
Like, is that a thing?
Yeah,
I don't know.
it is, apparently.
Yeah. Well, no, my baby's a little redhead too, and so people are always like, "Oh, look at him. Tell me about this red hair. As if somehow I can explain to you how chromosomes work.
Yeah, you're like, I think it's a recessive gene, so...
Well, my husband provided a sperm, and I provided an egg, and between us, we had some red hair.
You should tell them that
Get out of here.
You specifically went to a genetics lab because you wanted to...
Requested
You
it.
were like, I wanted to keep the red hair in the family. Like, I needed to make sure that it was visible to the human eye, so we had a lot of work done.
You wouldn't believe how many days we spent staring at those chromosomes until we found the right one.
He's also going to be 7 feet tall.
The ridiculous thing is, he probably will, and when he gets that tall, I'll be like, hey, did you meet him? Look at him, he's insane. You'd be like, what's up with this insane redheaded giant?
Yeah, we took a little bit of Ronald McDonald and we just threw it in there. Just because.
Oh my god, I bet you the guy who played Ronald McDonald in the 80s and 90s is super weird.
Oh, he's probably like a cokehead or something. Or he was. He's probably like a nice guy now.
Yeah, he's been through therapy now.
I was like, his kids are ththrough college now, so they forgive him.
You better like Ronald McDonald. He got you through Harvard.
He really did. He really did a lot.
All right, well, thank you so much. Have
Thanks
a good
for having
evening.
me.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Yes But Why podcast.